Hello people, this is question time. It was on last night. Obviously it was mostly around what happened in Manchester. I think it was Monday night, wasn't it? But yeah, we'll get on to the first question straight away.
Aaron Halkett, please.
Yeah, as a father of 3 young girls living here in Manchester, I found it hard to come to terms with Monday night's atrocities. What decisive action should government take to protect its citizens?
Right, for me, the first action the government should take is if the anti-terror unit has got evidence, then evidence on individuals, then I think there's a case to be made to have like a 2-tier system with GPS tags. I'm sorry, that's the way it goes. At the end of the day, the first one is just your standard tag around the leg. Now, if this individual will be kept an eye on 24/7, obviously at any time the terrorist anti-terror unit could bring up where he's been and all that, and if he comes in contact with a tier 2 person, then he's automatically upgraded to a tier 2 danger level. The tier 2 for me would be a tracking system under the skin. The technology is there to do it easy. It'd just be a little pill kind of thing under the skin, and they're kept an eye on 24/7. What that will do, in my opinion, is it will limit their ability to be able to go about freely, because at every step they will be tracked. The GPS, yeah, alright, they'll probably try and find a way around it eventually, but it is such a complex issue that you know, it ain't just going to be one issue. That's just one aspect that a government could do. The other aspect, obviously, is to not go cutting police. Obviously, the Tory minister was playing it all down and all that. If you're going to cut police, especially police that's walking around the neighbourhoods, you know, you're just not going to get that information that you need. And it is very disappointed that some of the Muslim people actually did come forward and highlight him as a danger. But obviously, the anti-terror unit has got to say, right, okay, let's look at him. Is he a real danger? And the ones that's not classified as a real danger are the ones that's most likely convinced to go and blow themselves up. So I think even the anti-terror unit has got to rethink on their classification, because obviously you want to go after the people that's designing these attacks, but if you could stop people wanting to blow themselves up, then those people are useless, really. So that's question number 1, Odd. Now I'm going to just do something which I don't normally do, and I'm just going to highlight a few. I've got a few of them that was from the audience, and I think they've done some valid points. So this is the first one from the audience.
In 2015, Theresa May, who was then Home Secretary, was addressed the Police Federation and told them that they were scaremongering because she was reducing the police numbers and community policing. And the Police Federation said at the time that low-level intelligence is what gives them the information and is able to feed those onto the intelligence services about terrorist activity. And we're now 20,000 police officers down, and we get atrocities like this.
Well, like I was just saying, that is a very valid point. If the police is telling them that you can't do this because we're going to lose officers in the neighbourhood, and we're not going to get the intel that we need, you know, and you know, there's so much when you're talking to somebody and you see them every day and you're talking to them, you know, you'd be surprised what people start saying, and it opens up the trust between the police and this person, you know, and I think that's a very important thing to do, and it's a very painfully slow process to get trust. especially from outside communities, you know, and I just think all the cuts that's happened, you can't blame that attack on that area specifically, but what you can say is it's had an effect, and less intelligence is coming from certain communities because they're in the community police anymore. So yeah, that's definitely had an effect. I'll move on to the next one now.
The movement of the threat level from severe to critical, which is part of this process, is done by an independent body. So I just need everyone to appreciate that. That's not a government proposal, it's done by an independent body, the Joint Terrorist Analysis Centre.
I do not believe that little statement one bit. That was from the Tory minister. I do not believe that at all. At the end of the day, all these departments says to the Prime Minister, right, we've got this information, we've got this information, we've got this information. And then ultimately, the Prime Minister's got to make the decision. That is the Tory party backing out of taking responsibility, and it really annoys me. At the end of the day, the Prime Minister is the ultimate one that can decide to put the threat level up or down. I do not buy that for 1 second, that's crap. If our Prime Minister hasn't got the authorities to say yes or no, then what's the point in even having her at the Cobra meetings? If she ain't going to make no decisions, then there's no point in her being there, is there? It's a load of crap. No, that's crap. The Prime Minister is the one that makes the final decisions. That's what it should be. She should be given all the information, and because she's she's elected by the party to be the Prime Minister, they get the final say. But she don't want to be seen to be making this updating critical from severe or whatever it was, because it would conflict with the general election, and she's not saying the strong and stable thing, but all this is designed to make it look like that. But she don't want that to be seen like that, so that's why they're pulling back on that and saying, well, no, it wasn't our decision. No, it is your decision. You're just given the information to make the decision. Oh man, that really annoys me. That really does annoy me. A party in power should never pull away from making the decisions, and that's exactly what she's just done as a minister. Right, I'll move on to question number 4 now. This is an actual question number 4.
How can we prevent Brits from being radicalised?
How can
we prevent Brits from being radicalised? I think the difference between people from outside in other countries, Muslims coming into this country, you know, I think there's a massive difference in young Muslims or British Muslims who've been born here. The biggest problem is the rhetoric that the ones from the outside comes in, and they start using the English language in a very clever, manipulative way that implies that if you don't follow these rules, you're not a Muslim. It's a very clever way that they're using that now, and how can you stop education? Yeah, that's the key thing at every stage is education, and you've got parents has got an imprint from a young age that you do not take life. Religion is not about taking a life. Religion is about understanding others and respecting others and getting on and just having your faith. Faith should never be about taking life. And sadly, I haven't heard any of that on the TV. None of it. It's just all about condemning. It's not about saying, well, no, hold on. Faith, religion is not about taking life. It's about helping you in your life. And as soon as you get people coming out saying, oh, well, you've got to do this, no, you don't. Faith is about helping you. And if it helps you to do those things, that's fine. But it shouldn't be a compulsion. You shouldn't be forced to do them. Because that, for me, goes on to a borderline of a cult rather than a religion. A religion should be there if you want it, and it should be an optional thing. It shouldn't be forced on people. It's wrong. So yeah, I'll move on to the next question.
Mosque. This is a leaflet that I was given on an open day. And this says, living in a society in which people have accepted Western lifestyle as their way of life brings immorality at every step. Modesty, shame and honour have no place in Western civilization.
I put this bit in because the first bit the first part of that speech by the leaflet that guy read out, that was definitely an attack on Muslims. It wasn't an attack on the British people, that come later down the road. But that first line that Moss was giving out, that was a clear attack on the Muslims. You know, if you embrace the Western life, what is the Western life? Oh, freedom, fairness, politeness, be a decent human being to others. That's the Western way, And I know there's that aspect of greed, but that's a whole different aspect, We're struggling with that just as much as any other country. But yeah, that first bit that got me, that first sentence, if you embrace Western cultures, essentially, then you're not, essentially in layman terms, I take from that leaflet that if you embrace the lifestyle of the Western way, you're not a true Muslim. And that's essentially what it says to me. And I think that needs to be looked at government level, and that needs to be rethinked, I think. But it's so difficult because at the same time, these terror groups, which is in our country, no doubt about it, they uses our freedom of speech to spread their propaganda, and that's the problem with it, is they're using our freedoms against us. They've twisted it in such a way to use it against us. And it's like, well, how far can we go without crossing that line of freedom of speech? And that's exactly what these more extreme Muslims uses. And they uses it in a very clever way to maybe get the moderate Muslims, some of them, on side. So it's about language. It really is. I think we need to really have a think about the strategy of how the terrorists are using the English language, because I think they're using it better than the government. The problem with ISIS is they haven't got the tanks or the planes to go bombing people, so they've got to think of other ways, and they're attacking all countries using their freedom and their own language against them, and we can't let our government start cutting more and more of our freedoms down to protect us. But in eyesight, it also reduces our freedoms. So yeah, it's a very complex issue. All around this is a very complex issue. So I just can't believe how at the audience, like the Muslim woman, she started to defend. It's a typical thing. She started to defend that type of thing, and I was like, read it. It's not saying almost. It's just saying if you as an individual Muslim integrates into Western society, you're not a Muslim. But she took it the other way and thought, oh, my faith's being attacked. So the crowd started to turn into like Muslims versus us. When you really listen to that speech, that paragraph that he read out, he's saying if you don't follow us. It's a very clever, manipulative bit of work, that is. Very clever. Well, I'll move on to question number 6 then.
Assad.
To what extent have the leaked security details jeopardised our special relationship with the US?
I just want to put...
Right, so there's been some information that's been leaked by the US, and I'm sorry, but I don't buy it for a second. This is just another spin by the Trump administration to try and get rid of the people they don't want in the top positions. It is trying to push those people out. So they're leaking this information, saying, well, it's not from us, it's from Obama's team. It's not from us, we're going to have to clamp down. They want those people that was in the Obama's administration out. They got a few of the real top level people out straight away. But obviously there's the lower level that is still there, and yeah, it's just Trump's team playing politics. And in this situation where, you know, you've got over 22 families has lost their loved ones, and I think there's over 59 people injured. I just think it's very poor for a country to do that. If we, you know, if we did the same to America, oh God, that would be the end of the world, wouldn't it? They'd probably cut us off. But yeah, I just think is a ploy by the Trump's administration to try and wheeze out more of the Obama's team that they don't want in those positions. So it's another way of eradicating the Obama's team completely from the highest levels of government, and eventually the Americans will be hit once it's all Trump's team and they know they can trust each other. That's when they'll start on the people, but that's a different subject. I just think it's very poor for the Americans. It shows them in a very bad light to first off be printing pictures that's from a terror attack. It is wrong, especially within a couple of hours. It's absolutely out of order. I'll move on to the last question now.
My 8-year-old English daughter asked me why her friends are referring to her as being a terrorist. What can be done to stop hate toward Muslims?
Has that actually...
This is going back to what I said at the beginning. There is a big difference between Muslims that's left a Muslim country and come here to make their life, and then there's actually overgrown Muslims, British Muslims, that's been here for years, and like a girl that's had that bit of freedom was happy to ask her dad and her parents. Yeah, that is a perfect thing, and you know, the parents has got to play a massive part there, because if they say the wrong thing, it could potentially send that child down the wrong path of being radicalised. So I think it's very encouraging that young British Muslims are asking these questions, because it's education. It shows that they're engaging in learning, and I think also it's unfair for me to keep blaming the Muslim. I also think British parents has also got a major part to play in educating their children not to go round and paint other children with the same brush, you know, only because it's wrong. I think the whole aspect there is a team effort by all parents. And sadly, if you've got parents that are of the, you know, BNP, EDL, UKIP area, then obviously that's going to be passed down to the kids, and then that's why the kids are going to school and passing on that hatred. And it's brilliant that the Muslim child is actually going to her parents and asking, you know, and I just hope that most Muslim parents will turn around and tell their kids, you know, no, that's not how we live. You know, religion is never used to justify killing. It should never be that. It's nothing to do with that. These are just nasty men that's trying to use killing other people as a justification for power and greed and just selfish behaviour. They're murderers. That's what they are. And I wish the whole media, I wish the whole area would just change and start calling them based on what our laws are. They're murderers. And if anyone's linked to murdering these people, they will be charged for murder, or whatever the charge can be if they're linked to helping this guy do what he did. But I think that's one thing that news channels should start picking up on big time, and they should start telling people straight away that there's no justification for using the faith to go and kill other people, and definitely there's no justification to want to go and blow yourself up. You know, my life's not great, but I would never dream about strapping bombs on me and go blow myself out. It's just stupid. And that's what you've got to try and educate. It made me that last question really made me optimistic about the future. Is as long as like young British kids are growing up, Muslim and British, you know, all around. Parents has got to play the massive part and teach their kids not to go around and the problem with it, kids always do that, innit? The kids in the playground, they always call each other names. That's part of growing up, and I don't care where country you come from. We're all human beings, and we've all been young, and that's the way it goes. Is sometimes kids are just being kids, and I think sometimes adults has got to realise that and you know, tell the kid that it's wrong, but don't go too far, you know. But yeah, that's it today. The problem with it is all this about the Manchester attacks. It takes the highlight off the general election, and I hope we get back onto the general election and not give these terrorists more airtime. I suspect the news channels will still be talking about this for another good 3-4 days. But I just feel, by keep talking about it, you're actually giving them all the airtime they want, and you know, I don't think that's a good thing, because it makes people nervous and it doesn't help anyone. So yeah, until the next Question Time video now. Ta-da, and thanks for listening.